Hello, everyone. My name is Zinhle Ngema. Feel free to call me Z while you practice. And welcome to Diaspora Whores. This is a talk space committed and dedicated to fucking destroying the diaspora wars and prompting the Black, African, and Caribbean diaspora to engage with each other through a revolutionary, socialist, and people-centered perspective. Ate that. Hey, welcome back. This week, I'm going to try something a little different. Instead of going on a rant like the crazy village lady, who always ends up being correct, might I add, I am just going to introduce the guest. We're just going to go straight into the fun times. How about that? I'll be back next week, though, don't you? Or in 2 weeks. Did I ever tell you guys that this is coming out every 2 months? I have a full-time job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have other things that pay my bills that I have to focus on, and soon come that this will definitely be a stream of income. But for right now, I got about two videos a month in me, baby. Yep. But absence, the fun and the heart and all that stuff. So anyway, today's guest is a former colleague of mine, a brilliant writer, a brilliant editor, fashion stylist down, and someone I'm really excited to know. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Robyn Mowatt.
Hi.
Hey!
I'm here.
She's here. Okay, so who are you? What do you do? And where are you from?
I am a writer, editor, also a reporter, and a consultant as well. And I'm from Orlando, Florida originally. And I've lived in New York City / Long Island / Brooklyn for 10 years now.
Yeah. And how do we know each other?
We are formerly co-workers.
Yep.
I was at OK Player for, I feel like it was kind of the sweet spot between 3 and 4 years. Mm-hmm. And we crossed paths and met, and it's been glorious ever since then.
And we keep running into each other at events because Robyn is that girl. Robyn is very cool, very tapped in, and I'm always so excited to see you, and you're always so kind to me. And yeah, you're an amazing Black woman in my network and in my community. So I definitely wanted to have you a part of this platform. And also, as you just reminded me, you're Jamaican. Yes. And so part of the diaspora. And as I was sharing, I don't know a lot about the history of the Caribbean. I know that obviously Black people got there through slavery, but I don't know more than that. I remember that Jamaica at one point, at many points, had a white president.
Now that is a fact that I was unaware of.
Yeah, or prime minister. I don't know what the leader is, but I remember, I think it was Bob Marley who was talking to the prime minister about you gotta do better. You gotta do better. And it was a white man. But anyway, we're not gonna.
Whoa.
Okay. So, Robyn, grew up in Florida, in Orlando, Florida. What was your experience being Black? When did you first realize you were Black?
I love that. I feel like when did I realize I was Black is hilarious. But I think growing up in Orlando was actually pretty fun. I also was very athletic. Okay. So I started ballet, tap, and jazz at 5 years old.
Period.
And then I continued doing ballet up until I was 16. But in addition to ballet, I also was a track runner. I also played soccer for years. I did AAU soccer for a little bit. So my childhood was really, I feel like it was a lot, but it was also a lot of fun. Because when you're doing all of those sports and activities, you are building, I guess, like team working skills, and just like this idea of you're on a team, so you're not alone in the world, I guess I'd say. And so I feel like those were really good memories for me, doing sports and activities. But beyond that, I'm a twin, and so growing up, it was always me and my sister, and I love that she also did activities as well. And I know for me, we really just had distinct personalities, so I feel like that, if anything, that really sticks out to me too from my childhood. Like, I was always in my room reading, writing in diaries. Those are things that I don't remember my sister doing. And then I also was just like always fascinated with music. So in addition to always being in my room, like outside of the activities, just like writing and drawing and just being myself, I was always listening to whatever music I was resonating with. And I feel like both of my parents also really love music too. And so their music taste poured into me, and also I feel like my twin and even my little sister that's going to be 21 this year, which is crazy to say.
Happy birthday, little sis.
Right, in July. And so I think biggest touch points for me growing up is really just this idea of learning, I guess, kind of what my version of Blackness was without being able to say that's what it was. And so it was filled with music, it was filled with drawing, it was filled with writing, it was filled with soccer, running. Also, my mom had me and my twin in different activities that really helped us kind of prepare for what life in college was like and life after college. And so those programs were also really great because we got to interact with a lot of Black students from different schools in Orlando. And beyond that, I feel like coming to New York every summer too.
Right, because your family,
my childhood consisted of that too. And so we would come to Long Island every summer, which I feel like was fun. We would do thrifting with my grandmother. We would do vintage shopping, consignment shopping.
Right.
And that was out on Long Island, so that was really formative for us. And then beyond that, my mom loved shopping. She also loved getting dressed, just like her mom. And so my memories from childhood consist of also going shopping with my mom.
Okay.
Constantly. And we would go to the movies. We were, you know, as a family, we would watch movies at home, or we would go to the movies all the time. I think my dad, he's just loves film. And then beyond that, trying to think what else. Just this idea of, I guess, fostering your kids' creativity. My parents were really good at that. And they never would try to kind of push me specifically into like one lane or another lane, especially coming from like a Caribbean, my dad's family is Caribbean. I feel like, of course, they wanted us to like study law or like engineering, whatnot, but I do appreciate everyone allowing me to kind of decide what was it going to be, and it ended up being writing, journalism.
Okay. And did you grow up around a lot of people that looked like you?
I would say yes and no. So the schools that me and my sister were going to were specifically in the Sanford area, which is not that far from where we grew up in Maitland. Okay. And so initially we went to a private school, but by the time that we were in like, I think it was around second grade, we started going to a public school, and all like the majority of the kids did look like us. It was a magnet school, elementary school, Goldsboro, and then...
What does a magnet school mean?
So there was like all this verbiage around interbaccalaureate and magnet, and just like sending your kids to like elementary or middle school or even high school that would offer classes that would allow them to kind of be the best of the best. Okay. And so you would have to kind of do a lottery to get your kids into some of these schools. And we entered the lottery for our elementary school, and we were able to go. And so we were bused there. It was maybe like 45 minutes or so away from where we lived. And it was, I mean, when you're a kid, you're just like, okay, this is just like a school. This is where I'm going. But by the time we got to middle school, which also had like, you know, what was it? I think IB classes. A lot of the kids did look like us, so that was a good thing. But I do think by the time we got to some of those like IB or magnet classes, like of course sometimes it would just be kind of me or maybe like two other people that looked like me in the classes. And then I think by the time I was in high school with the AP classes, that's when I started realizing, oh, like it's me and maybe like one other Black person in the class. It didn't necessarily bother me, but I did think I started to feel a little bit different like by high school. But beyond that, I was already realizing I was very different in elementary school. Right. Because I just, I don't know, like my family cracks me out because they're just like, I always was just like extremely proper, and like my posture was always just like very intense. And I think it was because I was a ballerina. So right. It's like talking proper and then also like having the posture. I think that kids didn't really know how to categorize me. So it was a little tough, but I powered through.
Yeah, you did.
And I think I was always in my books like reading. So when you're a voracious reader, you're in another universe.
Yeah. No, yeah, I used to read too, but my best friend Noelle, who I'm not sure if you've met her yet,
I don't think so.
soon come. She too grew up very much as a reader, and she's kind of explained her experience similarly to you. I love that your family was always very accepting of you.
Absolutely.
And very willing to let you kind of grow into yourself. And I think it's so interesting now because you I call you a fashion girly. You identify as a fashion girly,
I
right?
think so.
Okay,
Absolutely.
right. And so now you're saying you used to go shopping with your mom and your grandmother, and they both used to love dressing up. What kind of vision of Black women did you have growing up from those examples?
Oh my gosh, I love that you asked that. Because I think, one, I will have to mention my grandmother. She's a first lady, so my grandfather is a pastor, and so
first lady.
Yes, and so I think with that, she always had to look the part in church on Sundays. But beyond that, she has always loved just like very chic suits, very chic like two-piece sets, like for years. And you even have to think about that era because she was born, I believe, like in the 30s. Like she just turned 90 a few days ago.
Wow!
Yeah,
Congratulations!
90. And so, looking back through American history, a lot of what people were wearing in different periods is kind of different from what we see as normal dressing now.
Right.
And so I think because when her and my grandfather were in high school, they were wearing very nice outfits to school. And that was the norm. And so, you know, unfortunately with American fashion, a lot has started to get dumbed down.
Yes.
And so she's always had this vision of what I believe, like how she wanted to walk through the world for years. And so I definitely think she passed that down to my mom, who, you know, pastors' kids also have like different standards that they have to uphold.
Yes.
And my mom has also always loved fashion. And so I'm pretty sure maybe she's had a vision too, but I'm just so inspired by the fact that the way that they walk through the world is just in a confident way. And I feel like they passed that to me and my sisters. And I think that seeing them take pride in getting dressed constantly, no matter where they were going, is a part of me, and it's ingrained in me.
Okay. Shout out to Black women.
Right.
What a joy to be raised by women who are a good example, and you're like, oh, I love those characteristics, and I definitely want to make that a part of myself.
Exactly.
Was there any other inspiration that you saw, whether on TV or in magazines, of kind of wanting to pursue fashion and style?
That's a great question too. I think thinking back, I feel as though because I'm thinking of some of my family members that were kind of in this lane of academia, and like one of my uncles, he went to Pratt for undergrad, and eventually he ended up getting his PhD at UCF, but it was more so like in this lane of philosophy and psychology. And so thinking of him, and then also thinking of my dad's younger sister, she's an engineer by trade. And then thinking of my mom, she's also in academia for other parts of her life. Like she has her MSW, but she was a professor at UCF. So I feel like those were, I hate to say the term Black excellence, but those were the people that I saw succeeding and thriving. And then my dad was a serial entrepreneur. So that's what I saw. And then beyond that, I saw the people that I went to church with. They were like just the cream of the crop when we're thinking about Black people.
Right.
So to me, that was, again, doctors, lawyers, people who had jobs that were like very high powered, and a lot of people knew who they were at my church in Orlando. And so seeing all of that, I feel like was a little confusing for me because I didn't know anyone that was a journalism by trade beyond a family friend that worked for the Orlando Sentinel. But to me, that still was a bit removed from the type of journalism I thought that I was going to be interested in.
Right.
And even knowing that he worked at that newspaper, and then knowing all the different people in my life that were adults that were doing all of these different types of jobs, I just had this firm belief that moving to New York would just be helpful and beneficial to my journey. And so thankfully, I decided very early, I had to have been maybe like 12 or 11, and started understanding what a masthead in a magazine was.
Wow.
And so when I realized, I was just like, okay, not sure how I'm going to get my name in a magazine, but I'm going to aspire for that. And so I decided to go to FAMU and study journalism, and I think that fashion has just always been a part of my life, and I did a lot of creative projects on campus at FAMU that were fashion related. Oh, wow. Like our homecoming fashion show twice. 1 year, me and my best friend were the co-chair. And so I think that gave me a taste of what the industry was going to consist of. But beyond that, I've always been interning. And so by the time I decided to move to New York, I think that was when it really hit me. Like, okay, journalism, yes, but like, what is it going to look like? Right. And I think when I moved, I realized it's going to be my own path. Like, it's not going to look like anyone's path at all. Right. And so that was like a wake-up call for me, because you can look on LinkedIn and see, oh, I feel like I should be an editorial assistant. I feel like I should be an assistant editor. I feel like I should be a senior editor. But it's just like, sometimes you're going to skip steps, and that's okay. But that's kind of been my path. It's just like, when you stop looking at things as like a checklist and you're just navigating life and just being great at what you do, and you're like learning along the way, I think the opportunities start to come to you. And so that's kind of how I ended up doing the work that I've been doing for years, is literally by word of mouth, and then also just like continuing to be consistent in the work constantly. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, it does. Following your desire. And I totally agree, because I had no idea I just knew what I liked to do, and then kind of figured it out on the way and ended up in journalism. Whereas people who I grew up with, who had a very clear idea of who they wanted to be from a young age, if they didn't become that, it was like the end of the world. But it's like, that's one avenue.
That's literally kind of what I have to be grateful for, is never... Like, of course, you have, like, titles in mind, and, like, a direction in mind.
Experiences you'd like to have.
Yes, but I never forced myself. After, like, I got, like, my first full-time job at Hype Bay, from there, I kind of decided I'm not going to put myself, like, in a box anymore and force myself to think, like, every couple of years or, like, every year, like, I need this type of title, I need this type of money. It just creates kind of like a really tough spot to be in, because just like you said, you're kind of disappointed in yourself when those things don't happen. Right. And that's not how careers work.
Like you're saying, everyone's path is different. And just because someone did ABC doesn't mean that that'll happen for you, or even that that's right for you. You can still get to the same destination, just take your own journey. And I'm glad you've opened yourself up to the whatever happens. And so now you are freelancing. What is your situation work-wise?
Yeah, so now I'm freelancing. You know, I do get different paid speaking opportunities, just depending on like companies and like their budgets. But beyond that, I'm producing a podcast right now for heragenda.com, which has been really cool. It has all of these different women that are just phenomenal, thinking about, like, we have an episode actually dropping shortly. Our first episode was actually with Lisa Price. We also have an episode with Anne Choquette, the previous editor-in-chief of 17 magazine. Oh, wow. Very excited for that episode. And we have a few other episodes that are already recorded, locked and loaded, and will be out soon. So that's a project I'm excited about. And then beyond that, just different opportunities are coming my way. And so just opening myself up for what's there and continuing to believe in myself that more opportunities will pop up.
Okay. And in the beginning of your journey into journalism and now where you are, how would you say your experience as a Black woman has been? Do you feel, because we were talking earlier about how there've been a lot of like, you said, what, 600,000 last year Black women were laid off from their jobs.
I think it was between 500 and 600,000.
Which is just insane. And so it's amazing that you are freelancing and you do have these opportunities, but what has your experience been like with finding work? And do you feel like being a Black woman has helped or hindered or done anything?
I think when we think about the current state of, I would call it like a job crisis, because there's a lot of underemployment. And if there is employment, some of the roles just sometimes don't feel like they make sense for some Black women, including myself, that we're having to apply for because of what's out in the marketplace right now. But I do think being a Black woman right now, across the board, I do see some success stories. I do know like a few personal friends that are thriving and at this point have gotten opportunities that make sense for them, but they did have to go through a period of underemployment or lack of employment for months, like over 6 months or like even over a year. And so I do think that's tough. I'm hoping that it gets better. I think for me, the process has really been juggling job hunting while also freelancing, but then also continuing to let my network know that I'm available for different opportunities. And so I think it is just tough to see a lot of us going through it and like really not, you know, getting the types of jobs that we deserve, getting the type of pay that we deserve. However, I do think people leaning into entrepreneurship is actually great too, because if you have the ability to do it and you have, you know, like a savings or you have investors that are willing to work with you, I think that's kind of the best thing for Black women and women of color, because there's a lot of things in the workplace that we have to navigate that are extremely tough. So I think it's tough. I feel like sometimes being a Black woman, you are like kind of X'd out of some conversations and different opportunities. You may make it in different interview rounds, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get a job. And then you do realize sometimes I think that some companies want very specific types of Black candidates when they are looking to hire. I do think that they're doing a lot of us a disservice when they look at things from that perspective.
Yeah, I hear that. Do you see yourself ever working full time for a publication again?
I could see it if it makes sense, if the pay is what I feel like I should be making, if the title reflects like my level of experience. I definitely could see it. It just has to, like, I don't want to say like feel good, because of course it's a job, but I feel like I want to feel safe, protected, and just like be in a space that makes sense for me and where I'm at in my career.
And that's not a radical thing, but
I don't think so.
But it's like, it's wild that so many people, especially in media, are having experiences where they don't feel safe and where they don't feel valued. So anyway, you know you're good at what you do, and like you said, there's still other opportunities, and I trust that you'll find what works for you.
I think so.
Okay, so let's go back to Black. So you are Caribbean, you are Jamaican. A question that I'm asking American guests is, what was your first experience with a non-American Black person, but you grew up with immigrant family. So what was it like having family that aren't from the US and then experiencing Black Americans at the same time? Did you feel that there was a difference? Did you see, you said that you had family when they first arrived who were treated badly because they're Jamaican. What was your experience like?
I think I love that you brought this up, because I think when we're thinking about immigrant culture and we're thinking about even just the way that immigrants are being treated right now by the US, it's insane. It's very unfortunate that people are dying in the hands of ICE, and like also just like how immigration is enforcing all of these different guidelines, touch points. I'm even thinking of all of the detention centers throughout the country where people are being mistreated, they're dying, or even kids are having like a really hard time. It honestly is just devastating to see the updates. However, I will say, to me, it's like, I don't want to call it a strange thing, but I feel as though America is built off the backs of immigrants anyways, because of chattel slavery. So if anything, I always grew up just like, I never really wanted to claim one thing more than the other, because my mom, her family is originally from the US. Like, to our knowledge, we don't really know what the background is. And then my dad's family originally from Jamaica. So I think as I got older, and once again, I know I did share, we're Yankees, me and my sisters, because we don't really speak Patois at all. But I do think as I got older, I was able to be more proud of being Caribbean because I started realizing how immigrants are, yes, they're pivotal to the US, but also they came here in so many different types of ways.
Right.
But with African Americans, through like civil rights and all of that incredible work that was done in the 60s and like post 60s, all the other movements, I think that the country was left in a better place for Caribbeans to be able to come here and thrive. And even when we start thinking about people from different West African countries beginning to come to the US and also be able to thrive, all of that would not be possible without African Americans.
Right.
And so I think me growing up with kind of both in my household and also like constantly being exposed to my dad's family, which I loved, I think I really learned a lot of things about being proud of, you know, like having a Black mom, but then also having a Caribbean father. And so I think a lot of that has been ingrained in me from day one. And really the way I carry myself through the world too, which, you know, some people may not like it, but I mean, this is just who I am.
Right.
And so I think me also having like a sense of independence and also not really like, it's not even necessarily a community thing for me, but it's also being able to like scope out who the right people truly are for me. And I think that some people tend to struggle with that, but I do think a part of my Caribbean heritage really pushes me to realize like I don't have to cling on to people that are not my people.
Right.
And I can move through the world with friends that are truly for me and not feel like I need hundreds of people and like hundreds of friends to like co-sign whatever I'm doing in my life. And I definitely think that that comes from my Caribbean side.
Okay. Stand on your ground,
Yeah.
stand on your feet, and don't worry about what other people are saying.
No, staying in your own lane.
Yeah.
And being concerned about yourself.
Exactly. And that's being authentic. Because to be worried about everything else and what other people is not being authentic to you, and it's not, you know, allowing yourself to fully experience your own experience, watching how other people are experiencing you. How did you see Caribbeans depicted in TV when you were growing up?
I love that question too. I feel like low-key there wasn't
Not
really
at
much
all.
representation.
I cannot think of
The only representation
any.
is musically and pop culture wise, like with Bob Marley and with
Right.
different groups that I feel like I listened to growing up by proxy because of my dad, and also my grandfather loved music, so he would constantly be playing music in the house. So I feel as though there wasn't much representation, and that's tough because it's like I think that people love Jamaica,
Right.
but they only love what they know. They don't understand the classism that exists there. They don't understand how at the top there's a lot of issues that tend to trickle down, and you know there's a lot of desperation, there's a gang culture, there's like a lot of things that happen in Jamaica that in my opinion just shouldn't be happening.
Right. Yeah.
So
it reminds me, and again, like I said, I don't know a lot about the intricacies of the different Caribbean countries, but I can imagine that it's similar to the way a lot of African countries are, where the people who discovered, or the people who, you know, what's the word, colonized the country,
and
left it in shambles. Yeah, Jamaica and South Africa sometimes play each other in netball because we're both Commonwealth countries, because we both got taken by, you know, Lizzie and her people. But what was I going to say? Oh, it makes me think of a lot of African countries that were colonized by the British, by the French, at like Haiti, and then left in shambles because now they have to have this idea of, oh, black people don't know how to run governments, and then they are still involved in, you know, puppetry with the black people they put in charge. And so I'm sure Jamaica's struggling with a lot of the capitalist, colonialist remnants that a lot of African countries are, which is so infuriating because, like you're saying, it shouldn't be happening.
There's a lot. It's a lot of history there, and I also think, to me, the lack of stability sometimes leads to the people who, in my opinion, should be staying in your country. They decide to leave and come to the U.S. And because they want better opportunities for their family. And I believe that's why my grandparents probably decided they wanted to leave, to create a better life, not just for themselves, but for their kids.
I mean, that's part of why I left South Africa, because as much as I knew that I could probably build a career back home, the US, I mean, New York specifically is, in a lot of ways, the media hub of the world. And so studying journalism and being a journalist here just made sense to me. But then, like you're saying, there's the brain drain, because all of the people, and everyone obviously adds value, but certain people who could maybe bring value in different ways through academia, through different industries, will often leave because they want better opportunities.
Right.
And then they'll stay here and they'll have children and grandchildren. And like you also kind of said to me before, with how your dad would not really show his full, I guess, Jamaicanness.
Yeah, like during my childhood, and unless it was like around his family and people that he trusted. And I definitely think that, I don't want to speak for him, but I definitely think that that stems from being teased a lot when he did come here around age 7. And so that's horrible that someone should feel, I guess it's this idea of unwelcome. It's also this idea of, I think there's just like a thing amongst African Americans that they felt that Caribbeans were coming here and displacing them from work and opportunities. And to me, I have had to deal with, just like hearing some of those sentiments from family members, or just like the opposite of that with, it's like on the Caribbean side, some people say African Americans are lazy, which I don't agree with at all. So it's kind of like this tough thing where it's like those are the two, like, kind of like push and pull things that you're hearing, like, from people literally. But then I am going through a lived experience myself. Yeah. So it's just like I have both of those ethnicities. So it's definitely been tough and strange, because it's just like you don't want to like dwell on it too much, but it's definitely, there's definitely people walking this world and like living in the US that definitely think African Americans are lazy. There's definitely people who think Caribbeans and immigrants are taking jobs. And I just feel like that in itself, it's like manifested into the diaspora wars that we see online all the time.
Exactly, Robyn.
But this started in person, guys. It didn't just pop up online.
It didn't just pop up online, no. And that is so fascinating that you said specifically what you just said about African Americans being lazy and immigrants stealing jobs, because that's xenophobia. And we have the exact same issue in Africa, in South Africa. South Africans are incredibly xenophobic towards Zimbabweans, for example, because, and maybe, I mean, if you're coming into a country where you are literally here for survival, maybe you are willing to do more for less. Right. And so, yes, maybe in a messed up way.
It's still wrong to just like put that on someone and put it on the back of like a country and just like blatantly just say, oh, they'll come here and take any job. Like that's just completely invalid. It's wrong. It's nasty. And so I think, if anything, I always go back and think about civil rights history, the Black Power movement, Marcus Garvey's movement, all of those movements that happened in U.S. history. They were moments where a lot of people, no matter their ethnicity, no matter their background, they had to come together. And so I think it's easier for people to be separated and like be like in their own silo versus actually acknowledging, we can't actually be against each other. No. We all have to care about each other. And so I think in this juncture in my life, that's something that I dwell on a lot, because we need more togetherness versus like looking down upon people based on like where they're from. Like, I feel like those are the least of our worries.
The least of our worries. And that is my whole kind of argument with this podcast, is Diaspora Whores is a play on diaspora wars, because so much of it is by design. Like, everyone, you should have, if you are from this country, you should have your needs met regardless of if they're immigrants. You aren't having your needs taken away by immigrants. It's the people in charge who are not giving you what you need. And that, like, the immigrants are not, we are fighting on amongst ourselves, when in reality it's an above us thing. But that's how they stay in power. That's how they distract us, by saying, oh well, look at that person over there. And it's a lot easier to blame someone who is in a similar situation to you than to look up and say, actually, you are the one who's taking from me, not them. And that is what I'm hoping to do here, is for us to realize that we are all so similar. And also, yeah, like you're saying, it's nasty and it's rancid to look at someone from a different country in different circumstances and say, well, you're taking from me, or for me to come and say, well, you're not trying hard enough, so blah blah blah. It's just yeah.
I think that it's the heart of the U.S. is really just rotten in itself, and so
Divide
it
and
comes
conquer.
out in a lot of ways. And if you're Black and you've been in the U.S. long enough, you're gonna start to latch on to some of those beliefs. I've seen it in the industry that I work in. I've seen it specifically in fashion. I've seen it specifically in media and journalism, and I think that specifically with Black people, we just have to be careful how much of, I guess, like, whiteness and those beliefs that a lot of our peers have in different industries. We need to really tread lightly and be careful, and just, like, understand that because we've been here so long, it can become a part of our lives and become a part of how we move, a part of, like, how we treat people.
Yeah.
And that's just something I care about. It's just really paying attention to those things, because when they leap out in different ways, it can be very telling, and just very much allows me to realize who I want to be in my life and who I don't want to be in my life. And so I just tread very carefully with, just like white opinions, whiteness, and just the ideas that, like, follow capitalism.
Right.
Like, of course we all need jobs, of course we all need to survive, but there's just, like, a level of maliciousness that leaps out.
Absolutely.
In some of our peers at times, because I think that they're trying to copy and mimic what they see white people and, like, just people of power, no matter, like, their complexion, doing.
And I think also capitalism needs to have you need to have people who have less in order for capitalism to flourish. And I think Black people, specifically in media, have been taught to believe that there are only so many spots for us. There's only so much space. So we're each other's competition. If you get an opportunity, that's an opportunity that I couldn't get. But in reality, like we're saying, this is now an amazing opportunity for us to become entrepreneurs. There is so much space. All the idea that there can only be one, or the first Black this, or even Black excellence. Like, Black excellence is just the Black experience, And I'm glad that we at least are in the generation at a time now where it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to aspire to work for this publication in order to be successful. I can kind of make my way to my own version of success without, like, tramping people on my way up.
Yeah, I think everything you shared, I agree with. And I think I would love for more people to acknowledge if there's any people or just, like, things throughout their path where they've been malicious or nasty, and to get to wherever they felt like they needed to be or wanted to be, and to hopefully turn over a new leaf if they feel like they can. Right. But I feel like sometimes people are so far gone they can't come back.
Yeah. And then also the ego of being like, well, I'm here now, I might as well commit to the bit. But you could just be a better person,
Absolutely.
Okay, Robyn, my final question for you. With everything we've said, how has it been being a successful, ambitious, talented young Black woman in a world, and maybe even in an industry, that is not necessarily encouraging of that?
That's a lot. But I think it's definitely been complex, I'd say. Like, I feel as though what keeps me going is there's been more good days than bad days. But I definitely think the climb has been difficult at times. But I do think sometimes when whether I'm at a role or a different position where I feel like I'm in, like, a flow where things are on, like, an upward turn, those are, like, the best parts of the process when things are going well. But I do think the lack of, I guess, like, mentorship and some opportunities that I feel like I should have gotten that I haven't necessarily. I think that those are like the toughest days and moments. I think for me, my level of ambition at times has served me in just like in great ways, but I do think sometimes when you have such tunnel vision, you maybe aren't necessarily paying attention to some things, whether it's like family life, friends, and just like the people closest to you, you're going to miss out on a lot of things. And so I think for me, honestly, like the first 5 years of the 10 years that I've been here were that. Like I was just so locked in that I feel as though on a personal level, I wasn't showing up in the way that I wanted to. But I'm so thankful that by that year 5, the pandemic happened. And so I had an opportunity to change that. And so I think that that was very rewarding to be able to go home to Florida for 8 months and spend time with my family, take kind of a break from New York. But then also when I came back, I realized any like traveling and just being around family and visiting family, I have to make that a priority. Because in order to thrive, you have to also allow your family and like your tribe to be able to show up for you and also show up for them. And so I definitely think for the past 5 years I've been doing that and I've been happier.
Okay.
And I think that that's success to me. Like, of course it's great to get like a great gig or like a great contract or a great opportunity to pay our bills and, you know, to have a sense of stability. But I've found I'm so much more happier when I have some of those things going on, but then I'm also able to like visit my family and friends and spend time with them, because I think that that is success.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
Yes. Well, shout out to you for getting here.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you, and I'm so excited for you. And yeah, where can the people find you?
Anywhere online. If you want to check out my portfolio, it's robynmowatt.com. On Instagram, Robyn Mowatt. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I feel like it's kind of an unhinged diary though. It's Robyn_Mowatt. But that's where everyone can find me.
Okay, yay! Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being here, Robyn.
Absolutely,
I would love to have you on again in the future.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Great. Okay, bye.